Captain Daniel Perez, age 22, from Yad Binyamin, served as a platoon commander in the 7th Armored Brigade's 77th Battalion. He was killed and abducted, and his body was taken from the Gaza border following a battle with terrorists during the Hamas onslaught of October 7th of last year. On that same terrible day, Daniel's older brother, Yonatan Perez, was shot in the leg during a 5-hour gun battle with Hamas terrorists in the Gaza envelope. There was death and destruction all around, RPGs everywhere. Every army vehicle had been destroyed, said Yonatan and Daniel's father, Rabbi Robyn Perez, citing Yonatan. 10 days later, the Perez family decided to go ahead with the long-planned wedding of Yonatan and his fiancée, Galia. On Labor Day, I sat with hundreds of other people from around the world just inside the walls of the old city of Jerusalem, and I listened to Rabbi Perez speak. Thinking forward to today, to this moment, he started by asking, how do you dance on a day, the most difficult and challenging and dark day in Jewish history since the Shoah? Close to 1,300 people have a yahrzeit on that day, referring to today. He continued, I thought to myself, in my shul, in Yad Binyamin, when we opened the Ark to take out the Torah at about 9 o'clock, that was when my son was shot, wounded, probably killed at 9:01 and 36 seconds. That is the time we will be taking out the Sifrei Torah. With the understanding that the Yizkor of Shemini Atzeret occurs on the same day as the Hakafot of Simchat Torah in Israel, he asked, how do we say the words in Yizkor, Shenehergu, Veshenitbechu, Veshenechneku? We remember those who were killed and slaughtered and strangled. When these things all happened 1 year ago, at once, on that barbaric day, when we were supposed to be dancing with the Torah. How do we dance with genuine happiness in our hearts? Rabbi Perez said he did not think it would be possible to make it through his son Yonatan's wedding with his other son Daniel missing, but they did. He shared that they cried, they cried, and then they celebrated. It was the saddest and happiest occasion of their family's life. In chapter 3 of Kohelet, the Megillah connected with the festival of Sukkot, we read this week, 8 Sfod ve'et Rekod. There is a time to mourn and a time to dance. These are not different periods in life. They can both happen at the same time. We can mourn and dance at the same time, and we do. I know from this personally. 2 months before I was to be married, my Bubi Ethel, my only living grandparent, my mother's mother, she died. And just 3 weeks before I was to be married, my father's brother died. Autumn of 2007 was extremely difficult for my family. Both of my parents were in Avelut. They were mourning at their only daughter's wedding. But they found the strength to dance at the time of their mourning. Tonight and tomorrow, we will cry of happiness when we dance, because it's Simchat Torah, acknowledging the eternal gift of Torah. And there will be tears of pain. As Rabbi Peres shared, we have now joined with the generations of Jewish history which God has given us a furlough of them for many decades. Because in the entirety of Jewish history, it has been more common to dance on Simchat Torah amidst pain and fear and sadness. But for most of us, this is a new concept. On Yom Kippur in the early afternoon, we read what is called Eila Eskara, known in English as the Martyrology. In it, the death of Rabbi Hanina ben Teradion is described, taken from tractate Avodah Zarah in the Talmud. The Romans brought Rabbi Hanina ben Teradion for judgment, and they said to him, "Why do you occupy yourself with the Torah?" Rabbi Hanina ben Teradion said to them, citing a verse, Ka'asher tziva Adonai Elohai la'asot. He said, "I did as the Lord my God commanded me," from Devarim chapter 4. The Romans then immediately sentenced him to death by means of burning. And they sentenced his wife to execution by decapitation. And his daughter was condemned to sit in a brothel. He was sentenced to death by burning, we read a few lines later in the same page. They brought him to be sentenced, wrapped him in a Torah scroll, encircled him with bundles of branches, and they set fire to it. And they brought tufts of wool and soaked them in water and placed them on his heart so that his soul should not leave his body quickly. A few lines later on the same page, his student said to him, "Our teacher, what do you see?" And Rabbi Hanina ben Teradion said, "Galion nisrafim, v'otiyot porchot." I see the parchment burning, but its letters, they are flying free to the heavens. He saw the parchment burning, but the eternal letters of Torah were flying up to the skies. You can burn parchment. You can burn a body. One can sadistically destroy a body, but you can never, ever taint the Jewish soul. One more Talmudic text. In Moed Katan, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, "One who stands over the deceased at the time of the soul's departure is obligated to rend his clothes. To what may this be likened? Lesefer Torah shenisraf shechayav likroa. It's likened to a Torah scroll that is burned, for which anyone present is obligated to rend his clothes and mourn." The Ramban, Nachmanides, comments on this, and he says, "It seems to me that the soul in the body is like the names of God on the parchment. The souls of those who were murdered and strangled and burnt will be with us every single day, as they have been since this day 1 year ago. When we are in pain, they will be with us. And when we are dancing, they will be with us. We will remember that their bodies were terribly desecrated, but that the letters, their souls, they danced right up into the air. Now and forever, Simchat Torah will be eight Tzvod ve'eight Rekod. It will be a time of celebration and a time of pain. We will dance with the letters on the parchment and for the holy letters who made their way up to the sky. Rabbi Perez was one of the dreamers, one of the founders of the Simchat Torah project. He and his colleagues at Mizrahi, the religious Zionist movement, like so many of us, questioned and pondered the big question. Our Shemini Atzeret, Israel's Simchat Torah 5785, will mark the first yurtzeit of the 1,200 victims, at least, of October 7th. How do we, the Jewish people, respond? On Simchat Torah, will we dance? Should we dance? How do we commemorate this poignant and difficult anniversary? The goal of the Simchat Torah project is for synagogues around the world to open their Aron Kodesh on Erev Simchat Torah and take out several Torah scrolls, which we'll do later. And in each of these shuls, one or more will be adorned with a new Torah cover designed to mark the first yurtzeit of October 7th. The front of each of these new Torah covers is identical, but just their fronts. It looks like that. On the top it says, eight Tzvod ve'eight Rekod, a time to mourn, a time to dance. And underneath it says, may the memories of those who died today, may their souls be brought up to heaven, like the letters of the Torah from Rabbi Hanania ben Teradion, Tehi nishmatam srura b'Torah chayim. May their souls be bound up in the bonds of life. Now that's the front. But the back of each cover memorializes one precious soul who was murdered on a kibbutz, or at the Nova Festival, or in the line of duty for Medinat Israel on October 7th. Now we've added more of those who died in captivity, as well as soldiers who have lost their lives trying to get our hostages out of Gaza and dismantle Hamas and all of Iran's proxies. By having this Torah cover at Beth Tzedec, at this moment, we are now newly connected to hundreds of thousands of Jews around the world in at least 31 countries, including China, Israel, the US, our friends at Shir Shamayim, Australia, the Dominican Republic, the UK, and about 25 more. So when we dance tonight and tomorrow on Simchat Torah, however hard those first hakafot will be, we will dance with Torah scrolls that collectively link us with the events of October 7th and inspire us to realize Israel Chai. The Simchat Torah Project is one way to symbolize the Jewish people's resilience and our ability to find hope in the face of tragedy. Now, if Simchat Torah has never been your thing, I am standing here encouraging you to come Davka this year. Come tonight, come tomorrow morning, prioritize it. Dance with the Torah for those who can no longer celebrate this holiday. I am so grateful that I was able to go to Israel for the mission connected to bringing this Torah cover home. It was the most emotional and difficult Israel experience that I can remember, and I've been there during a lot of wars. It coincided with the murder of the 6 hostages, of Hirsch Goldberg Polin, of Ori Danino, of Eden Yerushalmi, of Almog Sarusi, of Alexander Lubanov, and of Carmel Gat. Now, I know it was difficult here in Toronto those days, but in Israel, you could practically touch the collective grief on the streets. The mission culminated with an event in the Old City where the families of the Kedoshim, of those who lost their lives, were invited to attend, but only a fraction showed up to meet representatives of the communities who came to Israel to honor and remember their sons or daughters or brothers or sisters or husbands or wives or fiancés or mothers or fathers or grandparents or grandchildren. For a moment only, I was upset that the family of the person that Beth Tzedec will remember did not travel up to Jerusalem. But then I changed my perspective, and I was just even more heartbroken for them. It was too hard. It was too much. So we here at Beth Tzedec, we are remembering Stanislav Kostarev. Not easy to say, so we're going to learn it. Repeat after me. Stan, Slav. Stanislav. Stanislav. Kos, ta, rev. Kostarev. Stanislav Kostarev. Zichrono livracha. I have come to love him. Stanislav, in death, has been part of my life since mid-August, when I received an email with his name on it. Now, Stanislav did not die on October 7th. Like us, he lived with the trauma of that day on our people for many, many months. Unlike us, he could do something. He was able to go into Gaza to try to get our hostages home and dismantle the terrorists. 8 Israeli soldiers were killed in a blast in southern Gaza Strip's Rafah area on Saturday morning, June 15th, in what at that time had marked the deadliest incident for the IDF since January. That was how Stanislav died, as a soldier, defending our country. The names of the slain soldiers killed in that blast were Captain Wassem Mahmoud, 23, from Beit Jan, and yes, he was a Druze. Sergeant Eliyahu Moshe Zimbalist, age 21, from Beit Shemesh. Sergeant Itai Amar, 19, from Kochav Yair. Staff Sergeant Oz Yeshaya Gruber, he was 20, from Tal Menashe. Staff Sergeant Or Blumowitz, also just 20, from Pardes Chana Karkur. Sergeant Yakir Yaakov Levy, he was 21, from Hafetz Chaim. Sergeant Shalom Menachem, also 21, from Beit El. And Staff Sergeant Stanislav Kostarev, age 21, from Ashdod. The troops all served in the Combat Engineering Corps' 601st Battalion. According to an initial IDF probe, the troops were killed inside a Namer armored combat engineering vehicle, a CEV. There were no survivors. The soldiers had been driving in a convoy at around 5 a.m. on Saturday morning, following an overnight offensive against Hamas in the northwest areas of the Tel Sultan neighborhood, during which troops under the 401st Armored Brigade had killed some 50 terrorists. The convoy was heading to buildings that had been captured by the army for the troops to rest following the overnight operation. The Namer CEV was the 5th or the 6th vehicle in the convoy, and at some point, it was hit by a major explosion. My extensive Google search has given me very little. It was not immediately clear if a bomb was planted ahead of time, or if Hamas operatives had approached the vehicle with an explosive device. And normally, mines and other explosives stored on the outside of a CEV wouldn't even manage to cause injuries to the troops inside if they detonated. And so today, I can share very little with you about Stanislav, except that he was 21 years old when he died, and he was from Ashdod, and he was buried in Ashdod. The principal of the school where Stanislav Kostarev studied remembered him as quiet, introverted, always respectful of humanity, a wise and humble boy, pleasant and kind-hearted. I have reached out to Mizrahi so many times to try to connect me to his family, but the family is just bereft, and they're not ready to talk. But I can share, he had a baby face. He was so cute. And I can share, as you know, he had his entire life ahead of him. And I can also share that his name will never be forgotten. With thanks to the Simchat Torah Project, we already have parents who dafka want to use this new Torah cover for their children's B'nai Mitzvah. We must offer a huge thank you to Janice Goldberg and to Stephen Nash for their contribution towards this Torah cover. This is a form of tzedakah that will reverberate for generations. Thank you. And so, friends, when you rise for Yizkor today, in addition to the people that you came to remember today, I invite you to please keep Stanislav in your kavanah. Keep him in your mind too, and say a prayer for his soul. Give tzedakah in his memory too, and we at Beth Tzedec will all keep his memory alive.